Hey guys, it's J.Anthony. Welcome back to my channel. Today's going to be an interesting review. It's actually one that I never planned on doing. So if you want to look up irony and hypocrite in the dictionary, this is probably going to be a great opportunity for you to do so, because considering that the last video that I just put out there was why I hate Swiss luxury watches, guess what I just did? I just bought another Swiss luxury watch. Now, in all fairness, it's not technically a Swiss luxury watch. It's a Detroit assembled Swiss luxury watch because it has a Swiss luxury movement in it. It has a Ronda movement in it. And if you know watches reasonably well, and you've watched some of my videos especially, you probably can guess what kind of watch it is. And of course, if you've read the description to the video you're watching, you already know what it is. But yeah, long story short, I had back-to-back business trips, and when I get stressed out, I buy stuff I don't need. And sure enough, I walked into a store and they had a sale on, and I bought another watch. So I got a good deal on it. I saved a ton of money off of retail. I never would have paid retail for it, but what have you. I think it's kind of a cool watch. Look forward to sharing it with you guys. Do I think it's worth the list price on it? No. Do I think it's a cool watch? Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. And I really want you to pay attention to the packaging that they use on this watch. This watch, as you've probably already figured out, is a Shinola. I think they do the best in business packaging. You know, I've had, Rolex Daytonas and Presidents and Jaeger-LeCoultres, you name it. I've had some very nice pieces. And I think the packaging that Shinola does on their watches, I think is just awesome. And I think a lot of people tend to overlook that. I think when you buy watches, I think the packaging kind of gets pushed aside. But I think Shinola does a very good job of creating their own experience, much as the way as Apple has with their products. I feel like there's this almost experience in just taking in the packaging itself. So I want you to pay attention to that. I'll go over some quick features on the watch and just kind of talk to you about what you can expect if you buy a Shinola yourself. And as always, I really appreciate all your continued support. Two quick tips coming up on the channel soon. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me. I am going to put out a video on Seiko watches in general. Probably going to have to do a couple of them because it's a very broad topic. I'm also going to be doing a video on a Poljoi, however, Komengerski. It's on the way, it hasn't come yet. And one other thing you guys have been asking me a lot, I haven't been telling you, what are you watching, or what watch are you wearing in your video? So for today's video, I'm wearing my Orient Power Reserve on a black leather, or black, colorblind, brown leather strap. So I'll try to do a better job of letting you guys know, because I know sometimes you'll see the watch I'm wearing in the channel and be like, hey, I like that, but I don't tell you what it is. So that's what that is. So long-winded enough. Again, this was an impulse buy for me. First world problems, man. I stressed out on a business trip, walked in a store, bought it. Am I going to keep it? I don't know. I mean, considering what I paid for it, there's other watches out there, obviously, that offer better bang per buck in theory, but it's a very cool piece, and I'm still kind of in the excited phase about it, so we'll see what happens if I keep it long term. And as you know, if you've watched my channel, I also have another Shinola. I have a Runwell as well, which is also a really cool watch. I'll put some of that in here too, so you can kind of compare and contrast, as they're very different sizes. The watch I'm about to show you is 46 mil, which is huge. The Runwell was 41 mil, so I'll kind of give you guys a sense of what you're really getting with extra millimeters as well. So, long-winded enough, let's go check out the watches. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this review started. Now, a little bit of background on Shinola, and just to start too, if you've been watching my channel, you probably already know that I have a personal connection with this group. For those of you that haven't known, I grew up near Detroit. I grew up in the sheltered, exclusive suburbs of Detroit, but I actually love Detroit, the city itself. Spent a lot of time downtown. And actually, this Shinola brochure you see right here in front of you, let me take this watch off of it. That's the Argonaut building, which is actually where they assemble all of their movements. And if you'll notice when I show you the watch itself, stay tuned for that, the watch movements are called Argonite, and they're actually named after this building, which was designed by Albert Kahn. And this used to be a GM building. And if you've watched my channel, you'll know that I come from a General Motors family. My father worked there for many years. A lot of my family members did. And I remember this building from my childhood. I absolutely love this building. And just a little bit of history as well, in case you guys are curious. There's a little brochure on them, but they were founded in 2011 by Bedrock Manufacturing. Now, Bedrock Manufacturing, for those of you that aren't familiar, is actually a company that was built by the guy that started Fossil Watches. So the founder of Fossil actually founded Bedrock Manufacturing. And as you can see here on the right, these are the people in Detroit that actually assemble the movements. Now, assemble is the key word. These are Ronda movements, which are also owned by Bedrock Manufacturing. They're basically Swiss movements that are assembled in Detroit by local Detroitians, I forget the proper term. And if you haven't come across Shinola before, they actually make quite a bit of goods. They have journals, they make bikes. You know, obviously watches, of course, and they have lots of leather goods that use Horween leather, which is a very nice style and quality of leather as well. So basically the way the watches get assembled is these craftspeople and the Argonaut building in Detroit basically assemble the movements, and then a lot of the parts are sourced from other places. The bracelets, I understand, can come from China. The leather is Horween leather, which is sourced from within the US, and their, again, final assembly point is in Detroit. So all that being said, let me go ahead and we'll start the watch review. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the box. As I told you, this is something that I really think people tend to overlook. Now let me fix the lighting here. So as you can see on the front of the box, it says Shinola Detroit. It is my understanding that this is all reclaimed wood, and I believe I understood it correctly that this wood actually came out of Detroit. Those of you that have been to Detroit know that there's no shortage of possibilities to reclaim wood. Packaging made in the USA, it has a serial number on it. It's a very nice wood box. I actually am really excited to find some other purpose for it besides just leaving it empty. But as you can see, it's almost been branded in the front with Shinola Detroit. And when we open the box, let me get the lighting better. So you have the watch itself, and again, I apologize for the poor lighting here. In the back, you have this great little card. Let me show you this card. So it says on the top, "Where America is Made." That's kind of their tagline. You have their website, their call number, and their street address, which is Milwaukee Street in Detroit. And it says on the back actually who made your watch. So my watch was made by Willie Holly. So nice job, Willie. The watch got put together pretty well, and it's part of the series number, which in this case is SO1. And this is metal. I mean, this is a pretty cool deal the way they put this thing together. It's a nice touch. It's actually riveted in the corners. No other watch manufacturer that I know of puts this much effort into like their cards that they put inside their warranty and their boxes. It's a very, very nice touch. Has a cool little finish on it as well. Hopefully you can see that. Back in the watch, before we get to the watch itself, there's this little pouch back here, which if I can get it out with my fat fingers, in itself is pretty cool. So inside this pouch, you get a leather wallet for your watch itself. This is made out of Horween leather. Those of you that ever held Horween leather, it's extremely nice. It feels very supple. There's a little flap here, and you can just slide the watch in there. I have no idea what to do with this. Maybe you could use this as a cigar holder, you know, put some Cubans in here. Let me know if you have an idea for what I can use this for in the comments below. It's very cool. I'd like to put it to use. Has Shinola Detroit on the bottom of it. Not sure what I'm going to do with it. Also in the box, you kind of get a little bit of their story, a journey of steel and quartz. They kind of go through, you know, how they build their products to last. And here's the assembly process of one of the movements. There's the beautiful, obviously, Argonaut building, which I love. And it shows kind of the assembly of the movement itself, which again, all the movements are Ronda-based movements. And actually, I'll show you in a bit when we look at the watch itself how you can tell that. And here's the plant manager. It's very cool. I mean, here's actually the assembly line of this. They assemble the watch movements themselves. So if you're into just industrial manufacturing, which I know makes me a nerd, I am, you know, it's really kind of cool to kind of see how they do these things. Here's obviously a woman that works in the factory itself. It's kind of cool. Here's the hand stitching of one of the, help me, leather straps as well, and some of the tools they have to use for leather crafting. So very cool. And then last but not least, here's a manual, but who hasn't seen one of these before? So yeah, oh well. Skip all that junk. So again, even before we've gotten to the watch itself, some really cool stuff. I mean, again, you got a leather wallet, you've got this beautiful metal card. I mean, it's just very nicely presented, gorgeous hardwood box. And then of course, the most important thing is what's actually in the box itself, which is the watch. So again, apologize for my poor lighting conditions here. Go ahead and take the watch out. So this model is known as the Brakeman. And I'm going to go ahead and readjust the camera so we can do a better close-up on the dial itself. Alright, thanks for sticking with me while I adjust cameras. Hopefully one day I'll make enough money off of these videos where I can afford a camera crew. Just kidding. So here is the watch itself. Let me go ahead and take it off of this little loop it's got underneath it. This is a double butterfly. So you just squeeze in the middle, comes undone. Get rid of that. The bracelet itself is pretty nice. The problem with the bracelet I have already is that it's these push pin links, which I hate, and I had a hell of a time adjusting it personally last night. You could obviously, in the store you purchase it, have them adjust it for you. I hate these kind of bracelets. They're such a pain to deal with. I'm sure you guys in the comments will say, oh, I have no problem adjusting them. I think they're annoying. In a perfect world, I think every watch should have a screw-out end link bracelet, but the bracelet itself is pretty nice. I believe the bracelet is sourced from China, if I understand correctly. Which is, I know, kind of disappointing for a luxury piece. But it has a nice lock for the butterfly clasp. It feels pretty solid. As you can see, the links themselves are all brushed. They should hold up better than polished links, so that should be good for desk diving, as most of these watches are going to be used for. I assure you that's the extent of the work this watch is going to see. So here's the dial itself. Hopefully you can see it's kind of like this matte gray looking dial. So at the top you're going to see at 12 o'clock it says Shinola Argonite 5030. And the 5030 is actually in reference to the movement itself, but for those of you that are familiar with Ronda movements, there is a Ronda movement called 5030. And no, that's not a coincidence. So this is the Ronda 5030 assembled by Shinola and renamed the Argonaut movement, or the Argonite movement. So what do you get with that movement? You get a 3-register chronograph plus a date at 6 o'clock. I understand that the contrast isn't the best, but at 6 you'll see 8. Today's the 8th day of May. And in the dials themselves, so what do you have? You have seconds, you have at 3 o'clock, you have a 30-minute counter here over at 9 o'clock, and at the bottom you have a 12-hour totalizer. So for every hour the chronograph runs, it'll tick off until it reaches the 12th hour of running, and then it'll reset itself. And then to start the chronograph, they actually have these nice little kind of hidden pushers. They kind of blend into the case, so it's kind of cool. You could almost just assume they're crown guards, but they're not. They're actually what you use to run the chronograph. So typically, as with most chronographs, you depress the first one and you'll see the second hand for the chronograph has started to tick. And as with most common chronographs as well, press it again to stop it, and then press the bottom in, and it'll reset. The crown itself is marked with the Shinola insignia. It has a really nice, almost like onion kind of style to it. It's screw down. This watch is water resistant to, I believe, 100 meters. And you can unscrew it as such. It has a very nice feel to it. When you unscrew it, it does feel pretty well made. I just unscrewed it. I don't want to change the time because it's set, but first position, as with most watches, you can hopefully see at 6 changes the day of the week. Second position would stop the second hand at 3. It's obviously you could set the time, but I just set this watch. I don't feel like resetting it. The dial itself, hopefully you can see the hour markers are actually luminescent. And if I go ahead and shut the light off, let me see if we can see a little bit of it. Just a little bit. This watch hasn't been charged. It's been sitting in a box, so you can start to see the markers are just starting to light up ever so slightly. And you can also see on the hour and minute hand as well that those are also illuminated. So I assume once this watch has been exposed to light for some time, it should have a pretty good luminescence to it. You also can kind of see too that the crown is, or not the crown, the crystal itself is relatively flat, but it almost looks like it has a domed look to it because the bezel around it actually has like this dome look to it. So depending on how you look at it, it almost gives the illusion that the crystal, which is sapphire by the way, is actually domed. It's not. As you can see, it's very reflective. This does not have a anti-reflective coating on it, unfortunately. And let me just see if I can get us a little closer here. So again, 12 o'clock, you have the Shinola logo and the insignia. It says Argonite 5030 again. That's reference to the 5030 Ronda movement. Detroit as well, as homage to where this watch is assembled. Again, here's your seconds hand. Here's your 12-hour totalizer, your 30-minute totalizer. Day of the week is down here. And again, you'll see once we start the chronograph that your second hand is here for the chronograph. I know a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll synchronize the chronograph hand with the second hand so they can have a larger second hand. You know, I don't do that. That's a great way to kill your battery a lot quicker, but I know people do that. The case back is pretty cool. Again, we're going to squeeze this in, deploy the butterfly. So let me put the light back on too. There we go. So, apologize while I get this to here. So registered design, top at 12 o'clock, all stainless steel, bottom at 6 o'clock, water resistant to 10 atmospheres over here by my thumb, and sapphire crystal over by the crown. That's what the printing says if you're trying to read it. Here's my watch's serial number. It's the series, this particular series is SO1000124, built in Detroit, USA movement with Swiss parts. Those of you may actually know, I'm not familiar with what they actually do over this centerpiece here. It almost feels like it's got a painted on finish. It feels really nice, and maybe you can see it from this angle. The lettering is actually raised. I really like the way they do the case backs on these things. Oh, and if you guys are curious to how to change the battery, you can of course send it to Shinola to do that. But if you get yourself a jeweler's set, you'll see there's these little flathead screws. Let me see if I can find a couple other. There's one here, one here. There's a total of 6 of them, it looks like. You just take the screws out. The case is a multi-piece design. The case will come apart, and then you can change the battery that way. For those of you curious of what size, let me go ahead and put it on my wrist. This watch is actually 46 millimeters. Apologize, let me get this off. So the watch, by the way, on my wrist was a 38 mil. There's a huge size difference, as you can see. And actually, just for comparison, here's my other Shinola. So this Shinola on the left is my Runwell, which is a 41 millimeter watch. The Brakeman that I'm showing to you now is a 46 millimeter watch, although I've seen some sources listed at 47. Honestly, it looks a lot bigger than that. I mean, just for comparison's sake, let me go ahead and put this on the wrist here. I have a 6.5 millimeter wrist. Just go ahead and pop this on here. Sorry, my fat skin's getting stuck in it. So as you can see, it takes up basically my entire wrist. It's an enormous watch. The only watch that I have that I'd say is, wears any larger than this is that huge Invicta you saw last week when I made that Swiss quartz video. So again, it takes up your entire wrist. And just again to give you a sense of comparison, let me slide it down my wrist. We'll put on a 41 millimeter watch, which for those of you that are wondering, I mean, this is a very common size watch. 41 mil, you'll find a lot of divers this size. The Rolex Sub, the Rolex Daytona. The Omega Seamasters, they're all around 41 mil. Let me get this on my wrist here. So there you go. Hopefully you can see just the momentous size difference between these two watches. And again, as with all Shinolas, as I mentioned, this is Argonite 5021. This is the Argonite 5030. Again, Ronda 5021 movement versus Ronda 5030 movement. As you can see, the only difference you get with the 5030, they both have seconds at 3. They both have a 30-minute totalizer at 9. However, with the 5030, not only do you get the data as you do with the 5021, you also get a 12-hour totalizer as well. So, as you can see, I tend to have a soft spot for Shinola. The marketing really speaks to me. Obviously, I'm a sucker being born in near Detroit and liking industrial things. I mean, I think their whole marketing advertising campaign for these watches is awesome. Both of these watches combined cost me what the retail is on one of these things. I stole both of these watches, got a really good deal on them. I personally would not buy one at retail. I think that there are better values out there. That said, you could easily spend way more than one of these guys at retail for another Swiss quartz watch, like a Tag Heuer or a Longines or you name it. We've talked about this before on my channel many times, and you'd just be throwing away even more money. So just if you're curious, both of these watches, this one retailed at $925 actually. I think this one retailed at $900 even. But yeah, so if you walk into a store, Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom's in the US tend to sell these watches. Sticker price on this guy is $925. And again, for that, you're getting a watch that has a bracelet made in China. And if you get one with a leather strap, the strap is actually made in the US. The movement itself is a Ronda movement that is assembled in Detroit by the team I showed you earlier. And, the overall execution on the watch is very nice. It feels very well made. It feels every bit the equivalent of a Swiss watch you'd pay $1,000 to $2,000 for. Again, my thing just with Swiss watches is their value in general. But, who knows? Let me know what you guys think below. As always, I appreciate you watching my channel. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And again, I'm a sucker for the packaging as well. I think the packaging is awesome. If you know of any other watch company that does packaging that well, I'd love to hear about it in your comments below. So please stay tuned for more content. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Thank you.